guys. I'm going to teach you guys something, and then give you guys a chance to practice it. And then I'm going to teach you guys something, and then give you a chance to practice it. And then the last thing I have, I grew up on the East Coast of the United States. We're really famous for talking very fast there. It's something that I know I have a problem with. So if at any time I'm talking too fast, just get my attention and go, and then I'll slow it back down a little bit. Mi español es muy mal. So
I see.
it's a little bit of it, but not much. So I'll do what I can, and if at any point something doesn't make sense, I didn't explain something clear enough, stop me, let me know, and I am more than happy to go back and try to explain it in a way that translates a little bit better. Sound good?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Cool.
Good.
Cool. So, the very brief background about who I am. I'm an entrepreneur, a consultant, and a shitty developer. So, a lot of people hear about Agile, and they think that is the word of God, right? This is the holy path. This is what we have to do in order to be great. And a lot of people hear about lean startup. They're like, no, this is what we have to do. This is the thing. This is everything. People hear about customer development. They're like, no, this is the solution. This is the answer. And the answer is they're all part of a greater ecosystem. And so my business partner and I kind of mash lean startup, customer development, design thinking, all these things into what we call pre-Agile. All the things you have to do before you start your Agile project to make sure that you build the right thing really, really well. Because in our experience, a lot of people switch to Agile and then they go build the wrong thing, but they build it really, really well. And they end up with a really great product that does the wrong thing. It solves the wrong problem. Or it doesn't solve a problem at all, is more often the answer. And so that's kind of the high level of what we're going to focus on today, is this pre-Agile stage. So you've got pre-Agile, and once you sort of figure out what problem you need to solve, you move into Agile. And then that helps you build this thing really, really well. And then eventually things go into maintenance, which is this thing is largely built, it's delivering value, there's people who are paying for it and they're very happy with it, and we have to keep working on it, but most of the work is done. Most of the work is done. And after that, you have something called lean, which is about process improvement. It's about waste reduction. It's about taking something that exists, finding the things that are no longer useful or necessary or desirable or being used, and getting rid of them. Because those things are consuming resources, consuming money, people, all sorts of things. And so if we can stop doing those things, we can free up money, we can free up people to go invest in new ideas that are in that pre-Agile stage, that are in that figuring out what problem we should be solving. So so this works at a high level. This works when you're the state of Washington and you're the government and you have 80,000 employees and you have a budget of $50 billion a year, right? And you have massive, massive IT projects that take $100 million to build. This works at this stage. It also works at the startup stage over the course of a couple weeks. Meetings can go through this. How many employees do they have? How much revenue do they have? What problems do they have? What industry are they in? What's the job title of the person that you interact with most there? And just make a big list, a big vertical list of those things. And then pick a next customer, make a big vertical list of those people. The next customer, a big vertical list. I also want you to think about what stage your relationship with them is in. This can either be I haven't talked to them yet, kind of like a stalker. You're in the shadows, you're watching them, you know a lot about them, but they don't know who you are yet. It can be a new relationship. You just met them, you just started working with them. It can be established, so maybe you've been working with them for a couple years, a couple months. They know who you are, you know who they are. It's a working relationship. It can be a trusted relationship, where you've been working with them for a couple years and they trust you. And they come to you and they say, we have this problem. I know you can help us because you've helped us so many times before. We trust you. Right? Or it could be a waning relationship. We've been working together for a long time. I'm starting to get bored. Or I'm starting to think I maybe need other things. I'm thinking about maybe going to look somewhere else for some services. So those are 5 classifications of where your relationship with them is. We can go find other customers. Or we can go think about where we might find other customers. If we know that there are companies with a world focus and they claim to be innovative and they have mobile apps, then maybe we don't, and they have $100 million revenue a year, then maybe we shouldn't be looking in like, I can't even think of a good example, in like Bagan, Myanmar. Maybe Myanmar isn't where a lot of these giant world-focused $100 million a year companies are currently. That is not the most useful example, I guess. But we can start to think about who our other customers could be.
But this is when you already have a relationship. Because usually the funnel is when you are trying to sell something new, right? So it's the acquisition of a new customer, but this is how you keep customers who are or are going to be in your customer list.
Both. So this is where kind of that traditional sales funnel is, right? And so you've got a bunch of people over here who aren't customers,
right?
And they come through the funnel, and now they are customers. But that doesn't just mean that they're customers for life, right?
Right.
That relationship will still evolve as it goes. And you can keep them happy. If they get to this waning point, that doesn't mean they have to leave. There's things you can do to help bring them back to here. And so optimally, nobody ever leaves, because as soon as you recognize maybe they're thinking about leaving, you talk to them and you say, hey, you've been a great customer for a long time. Is there anything else we can do to help you out? And they're like, oh, well, we were thinking about needing these sort of features that you guys don't offer. And so you can build those features and then keep them as customers. So that's optimally what this is working for, is know if you have a large group of people at any one stage, that's a bad place to be. And then capture those people at the end and bring them back.
And this is something that is already, or do you know if this is already implemented in a customer relationship management software or something like that? Or it's not standard?
I haven't used that many customer relationship management softwares, so I'm not actually sure, but they should have some way of looking at how long people have been customers and being able to visually represent that.
It's also relevant, for instance, to say when was the last time you contacted or you talked with them or stuff like that.
Yes.
Otherwise, you won't know if they're waiting or not.
If it's been a year since you've had a contact with a customer, it's probably a good time to give them a call and just say hello.
Yeah.
Because like we were talking about before, you're not talking to them, you're out of touch, and that only ever ends up bad. One of the traps that a lot of startups fall into is in the early days, they engage with their customers a lot. They're very close to their customers. They talk to their customers a lot. They have a lot of empathy with their customers. And as they grow, they lose that. No one would call Microsoft an empathetic organization. No one would say that Microsoft is really, really good at listening to what their customers need and doing that. And they've been getting better in the last couple of years, but for a long time, Microsoft just did what it wanted to do, and you either liked it or you didn't, but too bad. And so that's a big problem. They didn't used to be like that, but they are now. And so it's important to realize the value in starting with this and then also continuing. So one thing that I do with customer personas with some of my clients is have them write them up on larger pieces of paper and then put them on the wall. And I do a lot of things visually. That hasn't been clear yet. And you have like one piece of paper for each customer persona, and you may have 4 or 5 personas. 4 or 5 fictional customers that represent, fictional or real customers that represent that category of customer. So for Apptentive, our example before, you've got the Nike type organization. You also have restaurants, because at least in Seattle, a lot of restaurants have mobile apps, and a lot of those mobile apps are really bad. And it reflects poorly on the restaurant when they have a bad mobile app. And so restaurants don't make $100 million a year, like Nike does. So they're a different type of customer. You talk to them differently. You approach them differently. You find them in different places. The places where you go to meet people from Nike and Reebok and Adidas and Microsoft and Nordstrom, you might go to some big industry conference and meet a lot of those people. You won't meet any restaurant owners at that sort of conference. But if you go to a restaurant owners conference, you meet a lot of restaurant owners. So when I say that personas can help you find customers, that's what I mean. Is if you know the general buckets, categories of customers that you have, then you can figure out, okay, where would this person hang out? And it's really easy if you are a B2C company. So if my customers are women who are 15 to 19 years old, who are into fashion and come from like a middle class family with some disposable income, and they really like the band NSYNC and they like Katy Perry, I'm getting you all have a visual picture in your head of what this person looks like, right? I haven't described what hair color she is or how tall she is or how she dresses, but you're probably all thinking of someone who looks pretty similar. And if I know all these things about my customer, maybe I'm selling fashion accessories. So why do I care what music she likes? Because if I know what music she likes, I know where she hangs out, right? She probably hangs out at the mall a lot. She hangs out at these types of stores. Not even fashion stores. She hangs at these clothing stores or record stores. She goes to these types of concerts and hangs out with these types of people. And if I know that much about my customer, that's how marketing works, right? That's how I know where to put an advertisement. If I want to go find them to talk to them, to learn more about them, that's where I go and hang out. Maybe most of the people in this room shouldn't hang out at like Katy Perry concerts talking to 19-year-old girls, but that's a different story. So that's what you can think about. That's what these personas are useful for, is figuring out, okay, if this is a painting of my customer, right? Where can I go find someone who looks like this? All of these details about your customer, it's hard to empathize with them. It's hard to put yourself in their shoes. It's hard to see the world through their eyes. If you have a deep level of empathy and a deep connection to your customer, then the types of details you're filling in are much smaller, and your assumptions can be much better, right? And so, like when you were biking through Europe, maybe she didn't describe what color the cars that you were passing were, or what types of trees that you were passing, but you can fill in those tiny little details. And if you can put yourself in the mind of the customer and say like, okay, well, if I'm Jill and I have this problem, and if I'm using this thing, at this point, I'm probably going to be looking for this information, and I'm probably not going to know what this word means at this point, and I'm probably going to need this coming up next. And so if you can put yourself in the mind of the customer, because you have a deep, deep understanding of them, then you can create a much better experience for them, because you're not throwing in a bunch of stuff that they don't need to solve their problem. And you're not hiding a bunch of stuff that they really kind of want right now in order to get this job done. And so that's really the purpose of empathy. And I feel like this exercise usually does a pretty good job at helping people experience that, helping people have some experience and then realizing that other people see the exact same thing a different way. You all heard the same song, but you were biking through Europe, you were having dinner, you were dancing with your wife. People had very different experiences, different interpretations of the same experience.
When you try to buy something online here in Chile, they think that you are make them the favor instead of the other way. I mean, they should be the ones to make you feel comfortable in order to buy my product or whatever. But it's not in that way. You call them and yeah, okay, send, and that's all.
So what can you do to prevent that in your company? It sounds like an awesome opportunity.
It's a mind culture change. I mean, you have to be very proactive and move your people and change the mind that customer care. Mm-hmm. That's the thing.
You Do you feel like your customer service people are part of the same cultural things that, what was your
Francisco.
Francisco? Why are there so many Franciscos?
Tell me about it.
Do you feel like they're the same as what Francisco was describing?
No, it's a little bit different because our customer service is for help the people that are using our web platform. Yes,
Okay.
So we try to help the people as much as we can.
Yeah.
If I have to stay at the phone 5 minutes, 10 minutes or more, I will stay at the phone. So I think that the problem is a little bit different when you are taking...
Because the customer already buy it,
Yeah.
the solution.
Yes.
So does
So
it?
we really care about
It's customer
customers.
support.
I think
It's customer support, yeah, customer support.
They're
But
paying
but,
for
but
it
even,
before
even
that.
if, yeah, exactly. They
Yeah,
pay for
they
this.
have
So,
already paid. Yes.
so you have to
Does-
care.
Does that solve the problem then? If people are paying for it, then all of a sudden things get a lot better.
I don't think it's part of the solution because it's not only because you pay the way that you have to provide an answer. Okay, I don't think that. I mean, it's good to know that they provide a very good service, but in the main enterprises, to be so close. I mean, if you call to the telephone company, Telefonica, for whatever problem, you're paying for your internet or.
But you're not paying for the customer service. You're paying for the service, not the customer
Exactly,
service.
exactly. But it's part of the. Exactly.
Someone if-
But it's part of.
So is there
It's supposed that I'm
is there
that I'm
incentive
buying
system?
I'm renting a product that is the phone line or internet or whatever.
It's just crappy. No, honestly,
No, really.
it's just crappy.
Sure,
so
sure. We
they
can
don't
get-
have the
No.
need because there is no high benchmark, so they don't have the need to benchmark it, make it up.
Small market. Small market
it.
with no competition.
That with little
They don't have
competition. There are 4 telephone companies,
Yeah.
and they're all
Oh, we have
So-
the same problem in the United States.
Yeah.
Isn't
Well-
vanilla ice cream good?
No.
You're killing me. You're killing me. Yeah, thank you. There's always one in the group. There's always one. So if I say isn't vanilla ice cream good, you're like, yeah, I mean it's good. I'd eat it. I have it sometimes. Maybe it's not your favorite, but if I asked, well, that's not going to help either. We'll get to this eventually. If you lead someone, it's a great example of push, right? I'm pushing you to say, yeah, I like vanilla ice cream. That's fine. Maybe chocolate is your favorite. Well, yeah, vanilla's okay. But then I write down, really likes vanilla ice cream. Maybe that's what I said. That's what I thought. That's what I kind of wanted to hear from you. So leading questions are no good because you get biased answers. You get answers that might not be wrong. They might not be lies, but they may not be the whole truth. And you don't want to build your company off of a bunch of not really true statements and ideas. The next one is called actual self versus ideal self. So if you ask someone what they're going to do in the future, or if you ask someone what their company will be doing in 6 months from now, in a year from now, they will tell you about their ideal selves, about the best possible version of the future, of what they want to think of themselves as. You know, I see myself as someone who goes to the gym 3 times a week, every week, right? But my actual self is not that. And so this is connected to the next one, which is past behavior is the best indicator of future behavior. So the things that people have done in the past is their actual selves, right? It's the things they really do. It's the type of person they really are. It's the things that business has been able to accomplish. The things that people say they're going to do in the future is their future selves. And often, That doesn't come true.
Ouch, right?
I know, right?
What do you put in innovation then?
We'll get to that in a second. One good example of this, I don't know how universal this is, but in the United States, New Year's resolutions are a big thing. So it's New Year's time, and you're like, this year I'm going to do something different. I'm going to start going to the gym every week, right? But if you ask someone, how many times did you go to the gym last year? And they say, twice. The chances of them changing their behavior is very low, right? It might happen. There's a possibility that they start going to the gym, every day. But would I build a business around the hope that everyone who says I'm going to start going to the gym every day actually does? No, not a chance. 99.9997% of them will not do that. They will just stop going to the gym after a week or two. And so you want, when you're doing a customer interview, when you're trying to learn more about your customer, ask them about what they've done in the past. You can ask questions about what they're planning on doing in the future, but be very careful and be very skeptical of the answers that you get. Don't take them as facts. Take them as what this person is thinking about. But if you ask about what they've done in the past, you get facts. And you can extrapolate from those facts what they're likely to do in the future. So when it comes to innovation and doing new things, it's possible. But rarely do people go farther than one step past where they are today. So I was reading this great book about the natural history of innovation. So it looks at biology and how biology innovates. And then they map that to humans and society and culture and technology and stuff. And they were talking about Nikola Tesla, who is this famous physicist, mad scientist sort of person, and he could power all the streetlights in a town wirelessly from his generator 2 miles away in the 1900s, right? Crazy, crazy, innovative, very futuristic. It was too far past the world today for people to adopt it. It was too far. It was too advanced. It was too radical. And what you'll find, and there's an amazing online video company that was exactly like YouTube. Came out in 1995. Didn't work because video was too hard on the web. It was too large, internet speeds were too slow, and it was an idea before its time. And so if you want to do something innovative, and if you want customers to purchase something innovative, if they're here, you can't sell them on something that's over here. You've got to sell them on something that's here. And then they get here, and then they get here, and then they get there. Eventually they get there, but it takes time. And so by asking about all the things they've done in the past, you can plot their trajectory. And by asking about what they're doing right now, today, you can figure out where they are today. And then you know, okay, if this is their trajectory, am I here? Or is the service here? Right? And if the service is way out here, it's past what they're thinking about. It's past what they're worried about. It's past what they can comprehend and what they can understand. So, good question, though. Good question. So, the next rule is no pitching. So this is another good example of a push type question. So I come to a potential customer, and these interviews are all about learning from your customer, not selling to them, right? So if I'm trying to validate my idea, I want to go and I want to ask you a bunch of open-ended questions and have you basically tell me, man, I have this terrible problem, and that terrible problem is exactly what my product solves. That's kind of our goal with these interviews. Either to do that or just to learn a lot more about the problems they have. So then you can go build a solution to one of those problems. So we ended up talking to 160 small business owners all over the state. And we just asked them, tell me about the last time you interacted with the state of Washington. And we heard their stories. But something really interesting happened. We were working with the Chief Information Officer's Office, so the IT organization. But we were interested in any problem at all. So we would call people, and we'd have to schedule these interviews. We didn't just walk in to the businesses. So we call and we'd say, hi, my name is Zachary Kohn. I'm with the Chief Information Officer's Office, the state of Washington. And we're doing a research project, and I was wondering if we could spend a half an hour and talk to you and ask some questions. People were like, sure, that sounds great. I would love to do that. So we go and we sit down. And this one woman we sat down with said, you know, I'm really happy to be able to be here and help you, but I don't think I'm going to be useful to you. I don't have any IT problems. And we're like, oh, no, it's okay. We're not looking just for IT problems. We're looking for any problem. And she's like, I just don't think I can help you because I don't have any IT problems. I make candles or something. I don't use technology. I don't use computers. I don't have servers. I'm not an IT business. I don't think I'm getting any use of you for you. And we talked to her for 20 minutes, and we couldn't get through to her that we weren't interested in her problems configuring servers. That's not what we were interested in. We were interested in how she interacts with the state, how she pays her taxes, how she applies for licenses to sell candles. But she didn't understand. And we realized, it's because when we called her, I said, hi, my name is Dr. Kohn. I'm with the Chief Information Officer's Office of the state of Washington. And then we talked to her, we sat down with her a week and a half later, and over that whole week and a half, all she could think about was Chief Information Officer, IT. That's all she thought about for a week. We planted this seed in her brain, like a little plant, that we were looking for IT problems. So when we sat down with her, that was all she could think about. So when you're calling, the point of this whole story, when you're calling people to schedule a time to talk to them, you want to give them enough information that they want to talk to you, right? I'm not just going to call up Sebastian and say, hey. Sebastian's like, who's this? I'm like, oh, it's Zach. Okay. He's like, yeah, can we talk for half an hour or so? Why? I was like, oh, no reason. Just want to talk. That's not going to work, right? Especially if you don't know these people. So you want to give them a little bit of information about who you are and what you're trying to do. But if you give them too much information, then you can bias the answers that you'll get. If you say, hey, I'm looking to talk to people about how they save and share Word documents, then they're going to come into that conversation, and they are only going to want to talk about how they save and share Word documents. And you might be interested in something like Office 365, where you're doing document management, and I'm not sure remember if you're working on document management, but it doesn't matter. You might be interested in just enterprise-level document management. But if you gave them too much information, they're not going to be able to think that broad, right? The next one is called low cognitive load questions. So, Francisco.
Yes.
What is the best meal you've ever had in your entire life? All right. You don't have to answer. But did you guys look at him? He was like, ah. And he like looked out the window and like his head did this. Sometimes people will go, sometimes people will look up at the sky. They're just like, oh God, that's a hard question. And it is a hard question. You've got to think about every meal you've ever had in your whole life. You've got to rank them and prioritize them. You've got to say, well, does the pasta that I had at that cafe in Italy, how does that compare to my mother's homemade steak that she used to make when I was growing up? And how do I compare those two? Because this was technically better, but I have like a stronger emotional connection to it. And it's a really hard question. So don't ask really hard questions like that.
It's a bad question.
Because it's a bad question. Because honestly, so the way memory works is I can't just go from here, which is the question, straight to the answer, right? The way memory works is you take a path, and as you're on this path, you start to remember things along that path. And so instead, if that's what I was interested in learning from Francisco, instead I might say, Francisco, can you tell me about the last meal that you had?
Sure. You want me to?
No, I don't care. But the point was, he's like, yeah, that's an easy question. And so we talk about the last meal he had. And then I can ask questions like, oh, do you have that often? Or was that sort of unusual? And he's like, oh, that was really unusual. I've actually never had that before. Usually, I go and I eat these things. It's like, oh, interesting. Why do you usually eat those things? Maybe because they're Francisco's favorite food. Or maybe it's because that's what his wife makes, and he doesn't care enough to tell his wife that he doesn't like it. That's important information to know, right? And then we keep asking questions. It's like, oh, well, have you been having this for years or just recently? It's like, oh, I've been having this since I was a kid, because my mom used to make it. It's like, oh, that's awesome. And so you can learn a lot more by taking a path. So the last one is stories are better than statements. So if I had asked Francisco, what was the last thing you ate? Your answer is?
Cookies.
Yeah. Cookies. Cookies. Period. That doesn't tell me a whole lot, right? If instead I asked Francisco, can you tell me about the last time you ate something?
We were on a coffee break and there was all these type of blah blah blah.
Blah, blah, blah. Great. So we learn by asking a question that elicits a story instead of just a statement, is that Francisco was at this event and there's this really cool guy there speaking and everybody liked him a whole lot. And he gave it and he gave everybody a break and he was out in the common room and he was eating some cookies while talking to this other person about this other thing, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We learn about the context. And that's what's important here, is the context. So another bad example of this is yes or no questions. If I say, did you eat today?
Yeah.
Yes. He ate today. But if I say, tell me about the last meal that you ate, then he doesn't just say yes. He starts to tell a story about the last meal that he ate. So a great story about that too. The same commercial real estate guy. He was talking to this broker who lives at the top of one of these towers or whatever, and this was a later stage interview. So he had gotten to the point where this was obviously a problem, and he was like, yeah, well, actually, I'm creating some software that can help fix that, that can help deal with this problem of emailing spreadsheets around. And the guy was like, I don't know why. I get it, that's cool, it's definitely a big problem. I'm probably not a good customer. Like, I just hired a software developer to go solve this problem for me, right? I'm just paying this guy, and it's going to take him 18 months, and then we'll have their own kind of in-house solution that's built, and we'll be able to add our own features and whatever. This guy was living in Seattle. Seattle has the second highest wages for software developers in the world. An average software developer makes $110,000 a year in Seattle. So this guy is spending $110,000 a year for 18 months. So, I don't know, $200 and some thousand after taxes, probably $250,000 to build this product. And it won't be done for 18 months. And my friend was thinking about charging $100 a month. And so my friend is also very clever. And he was like, well, my product's going to be ready to be used in 30 days, and we only cost $1,000 a month. So on the spot, he 10x'd his price, because he did the math himself. But then the real estate broker was like, wait, my solution's going to cost me $250,000 and take 18 months. This guy can give me a solution for $18,000, and it can be ready in a month from now. That's a no-brainer. Right? So he signed up, and that was one of his first big customers. And he figured out something about pricing that he probably should have done before as well. And so what he learned, to tie it all back, this guy did not care about time. Because in a previous interview, they'd been talking about some paperwork process. And what he learned is, this guy pays some college intern to do this, and takes the college intern 10 hours. And he's like, we can automate this and get it done in 2 hours. And the guy's like, I don't care. I paid this college intern $10 an hour. It takes 10 hours, it costs $100, and honestly, it's not super important anyway. So if it takes 10 hours, or if it takes 2 hours, or if it takes 50 hours, I don't really care. So that was not important to him. So he didn't value time for that, but he valued money over here. So by finding out that this customer was paying for a solution, he knew how to approach that person. So that's the long roundabout way of saying you need to find out how your customers are dealing with their problems today, because that will help you understand how to talk to them. It'll help you understand what they value, and it will help you understand how you need to build your product, or even if you should build your product. What will happen very often with people who are new to interviewing is they'll be very fast to jump in and ask the next question. You were talking about this, how you were interviewing, I think you, and there's an opportunity to ask that why question. And you kind of wanted to jump in, but you didn't interrupt him, and he kept talking, and you kind of lost that opportunity. But if you had jumped in, you wouldn't have learned the rest of what he said, right? And so by pausing and waiting, and then being able to come back to that later, then you can get all of this, and then you can go deep here. And by asking a question, getting an answer, then just pausing for an instant, people can have a second to think and realize, oh, there is something else that I want to say here. But a lot of times, you'll answer a question, and I'll jump right into my next question. And you end up losing a lot. You end up losing a lot of the most valuable information that you would have done otherwise. So this is a harder technique to use. This is definitely like mid-level, not beginner level, but it's a really powerful. A focus group is when you get like 10 people in the room and one kind of facilitator who's asking them questions. But the problem with that, if you have 10 people in a room for an hour, best case, you get 6 minutes with each one of them. So like, what is the point of that? You guys got to an interesting place in 90 seconds, but you would have gotten to a much more interesting place if I'd given you half an hour. And 6 minutes just isn't that much time for that. I'd rather you talk to one person for 60 minutes than 10 people for 6 minutes each. The other problem with focus groups is one person has a very strong personality can sway the opinion of everyone else. If someone comes out and is like, man, I hate when this happens, or man, I hate this feature, if someone else really loves that feature, but isn't as aggressive, isn't as extroverted, isn't as kind of outspoken, they'll just kind of be quiet. Because they don't want to get yelled at by the person who just yelled about how much they hate this thing. And so you find out that, oh, everyone in the focus group hated this feature, but maybe it was just the one person. Face-to-face is the best. Sitting down over coffee at their desk, at their office is the best. That's not always possible. Video chat is kind of the next best thing, a Skype video. That's not always possible. Audio, phone call is the next best after that. And then after that, email, instant messenger, carrier pigeons, not even worth it.
Hi, last week I was talking with Andres Arellano from Modernización about document interoperability in government and the future challenges. Probably you will have the same challenges. My name is Walter Rodriguez, I'm the CEO of PXC. We provide document management solutions for government. I would like to talk to you about 30 minutes on this topic. Know your challenges and ideas. Please let me know when it's possible to arrange a meeting. Thanks and regards.
So this advice depends on who you're talking to. If you're talking to someone like the Minister of Education, maybe this is less relevant, but many, 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 many more times, if you propose a time to meet, or if you propose a couple times to meet, it's easier for them to accept. If you say, let me know when it's possible to arrange a meeting, then if I get this email, I've got to go check my calendar. I've got to go look for a bunch of free times. I've got to go think about, do I want to meet at this time or not? Will someone else want to meet here? Do I want to do that? I've got to propose some times to you. You've got to get back to me and say, yeah, that works for me, or no, that doesn't work for me. And there's this whole back and forth that happens. If you say, I'm going to be in your neighborhood on Tuesday in the afternoon, would that work for you to meet? And if not, propose some alternative times, but I'll be around that time anyway. And so then it becomes very easy for me to be like, yeah, Tuesday afternoon works. How about 2 o'clock?